The 103rd edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
It's not about you. It's about that name on the front of your jersey.
Ready on his second attempt. That is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. Pushes in here. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. The shot down. On the pass. Oklahoma timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has up number 1 Oklahoma.
With 20 seconds left to play. Goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good. 63-62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Brett Brown looking. Oh, way to win it. 35. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship.
Rebounded by Weber. Michigan out of timeout. Weber front court. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. They're out of timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul. Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out the head. Long outside shot. Short. Rebounded. No! It's over. Carolina has won the national championship. How about them Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
That's it! Make room for 2017. The Tar Heels are the national dadgum champions.
That's what it's all about right there. That's on the floor, that's on your shirt, that's in your heart. That's why we're all here.
This is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Joshua Marlowe.
Hey guys, and welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services, and today we are going to double up. We're going to look back at the 66-52 loss to Pittsburgh on Saturday and look ahead to the Wednesday game against Virginia Tech that'll be in Blacksburg Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Take this time to welcome in my gracious co-host, Anthony. We got a different setup today. We are now sitting across from each other as we record. Anthony is
Worst setup ever.
Anthony is running the board.
The board, literally running 2 headphone mics that we are using to record this podcast.
Giving him practice
you're giving it,
as we try to...
Giving me practice. I'm the guy that's been doing the podcast longer and was in school before you and has been doing all this type of stuff longer than you. But sure.
He's a little rusty. Trying to get him up to speed. Look, man, I'm tired of having to come on here and talk about losses.
Yeah, I thought about retiring from this podcast over the weekend and just saying, all right, we'll try someone else out because this has been a very horrible year. By the way, that's all a joke. I'm not bailing on this team. We said that earlier in the year. It's just, after a while, it is almost like, it's basically like going to a therapy session each week. Because at this point, there's really just nothing that positive to talk about with this team. Ever since Anthony Harris's injury, it's just been all completely downhill.
Yeah, it's something that when he got hurt, I think when we all watched the play, we probably thought he's done. But I still don't think it ever entered the back of our minds that the season's toast. We still felt okay because Jeremiah Francis at the time was playing really good ball. And look, I've gone on record saying I'm not going to come on here and criticize Jeremiah Francis. He's earned the right to not be criticized when he struggles. The fact that he's on the court, remarkable. His story is something that I could never be one to get negative about because, there was a time that he never thought he'd even walk on a basketball court, let alone start for North Carolina.
Plus, he's a freshman. You're going to go through the ebbs and flows. This is not a guy that's a junior or senior that we're expecting to be consistently playing well. It's going to happen. But
the Pitt loss was a culmination, really, of everything that had went wrong in the Georgia Tech, Clemson, and the first time we played Pittsburgh game. I made the comment, we were talking during the game, Carolina had a 5-2 lead, and Leaky Black hits a 3. But the first thing went wrong, whether it was they didn't corral the right rebound or they turned the ball over, they gave up an easy bucket, they quit. And I can count on one hand how many times I've looked at a Carolina team coached by Roy Williams and looked at, who was you, my dad, myself, and said they've quit. And they quit in the first half, and got to give a lot of credit to Pitt. The game meant more to the Panthers than it meant to Carolina. There was a more emotional investment from them, from their fan base. It's a big game, even though, and I think that's the thing that we've got to remember, even though Carolina's down, for Pitt, Boston College, Wake, they don't care. These are still big games for those schools because you're bringing in Carolina. Look at Gonzaga. Gonzaga's now a known brand. Everyone knows that program. But when Carolina went west back in December, you couldn't tickets there to sit in the nosebleeds, $800, because North Carolina was going to be on the court. And I think that's something that this team, kind of like that 2010 team had a problem with, is meeting that intensity level that's required in the games that you're not playing the Dukes, Kentuckys, Louisvilles, or whoever. And it's part of a team being young, extremely inexperienced. You brought in 2 grad transfers that have never played in these kind of environments, and the environments, yes, have affected them. But it was still just a frustrating first half. You go to the second half, and I think that's something where if you can find anything positive out of this game, it was the fact that in the second half, the defense, because they put themselves in a 2-3 zone, because of their inability to guard the ball. It wasn't because anything great they went to a 2-3 zone. When Carolina plays zones, that means there's something major wrong with what's going on the court. Roy puts them in a 2-3, and it works. It slowed the game down. Although Carolina needs to be out running, it slowed the game down enough to keep them in it. They could never really threaten because their inability to score, but you give up 23 points in the second half. They only shot 23% in the second half, 10% from 3. And you at least felt like you still had a chance because you cut it to 12 a couple times. It was under 8, and with 3 minutes to go, you just could never get over the hump. A lot of miscues from Carolina. We go 10 of 21 from the foul line. Garrison Brooks 2 weeks ago was 17 of 18 from the free throw line against Georgia Tech. This game he's 2 for 8. I mean, those are the things that where this team can't get out of their way. They did it again Saturday, and that's why they're 8-9. It's their second losing streak of 4 games this season. They're 1-5 in the ACC, below 500 for the first time since they lost the season opener of the 2004-2005 year. We all know what happened in that season. Frankly, we all know that same result's not going to happen with this year's team.
Yeah. I mean, it's just at this point, it's hard to be really overly positive about a whole lot. You bring up a really good point. Something that it pretty much when Pittsburgh punched back in this game, did it not feel like just from our perspective sitting at home, this looked like a team that was just defeated, that they knew they were going to lose this game. It just didn't look like a Carolina team that I personally have ever seen, even in 2010.
Well, what I think it proved was that this team was thinking a lot more of what happened against the Clemson game, those final 7 minutes, than what they did the first 38, which is why, we can't speak for Roy Williams, but I guarantee you in those practice sessions, he probably understood, man, I got to focus on what they did right for 38 minutes.
Yeah.
Because they're going to beat themselves up over what happened in those final 7 minutes.
Right.
This is a defeated team. This is a team, for all intents and purposes, has probably mailed it in on a lost season. Cole Anthony.
Yeah, I would say that.
Cole Anthony's good. Cole Anthony's not going to be good enough to take Carolina to the tournament.
I mean,
barring, you're right now. You're 1-5. I have said all year long you've got to get to 500 in this league. You keep losing, you keep digging yourself a hole, and you still got to go to Florida State. You still got to go to Louisville. You still got Duke twice. NC State isn't good, but they're good enough to beat you this year.
They're better than you right now. Yeah.
And
let's
so
be real.
The task is mounting.
Yeah, and every game you lose, you get that much closer to not making the tournament. Pretty much what's going to happen is Cole Anthony is going to have to come back and be the number 1 pick in the NBA. He is going to have to play so well that he will surpass James Wiseman and without a doubt become the number 1 pick in the NBA draft because he's that good. And pretty much, I mean, I don't look. You're the guy that's a little more invested in college basketball and everything. I kind of focus a little more on college football. I'm assuming that just from looking around the nation where this team's net rank is at, pretty much they would have to probably win out. They could maybe lose, a max of 2 games if they're going to make the tournament, just because look at the losses that are on the schedule. You've lost to a Georgia Tech team that's god-awful. You've lost to a Clemson team that is looking better, but let's be real honest. Do we actually think that Clemson's going to make the tournament? Probably not. And then, you look at some of these games that are coming up because we just don't know when Cole Anthony's going to come back. If you're one of those ones hoping that we can still make the tournament, which I think we're all kind of there, Cole Anthony needs to come back either on Wednesday night's game against Virginia Tech or in Saturday's game against Miami, because if you fall to 8-11, I think that's pretty much all she wrote.
Yeah, the problem with what you're asking for Cole Anthony is you're asking him to do what he did against Notre Dame
in every game.
And let's not forget, he took the game over in the second half. It wasn't from the very beginning. He controlled the game. And you're about to ask a guy who's been out a minimum 5 weeks. You've got to play 35 to 38 minutes, and we need you to control the game from work tip. That's a lot to ask for because you're just not getting any help from anyone else. In my dreams, I think, he comes back and Brandon Robinson is giving you points more efficiently. You think it's going to make life easier for Garrison Brooks and Armando Bacot. But look at the first 7 games before he got hurt.
Right. Well, one thing
that didn't happen.
One thing that's going to be interesting is, remember, Jeremiah Francis wasn't active when he was originally on the court before the injury. Does having him back, maybe being able to play him off the ball and have him on the court help out a little bit?
It doesn't,
I think
because
maybe
because
he's your best shooter. Cole Anthony's your best shooter. That's not saying a whole lot, but he is without a doubt your best shooting option from the perimeter.
But the problem is, and it's so much like with Marcus Page when they tried to move him off the ball of Joel Berry, and I know that team went to the NCAA final. Cole Anthony creates because he dominates the ball.
Oh, I get it, but
moving him off the ball and moving him and having him running around through screens and other actions, it's not his game. He needs the ball to score.
It's still better than what's out there right now, though. Can we agree on that? No offense to Andrew Platek. I'm sorry. He's just not. He's not what you need to win basketball games in the ACC.
Pretty much what it would be is you're going to give him the ball, you're going to roll it out there and say, if you go jack up 30, I'm not going to complain at you.
Yeah.
Which was where we'd pretty much gotten to before the injury. The issue is that we know with Roy Williams, with Carolina, that's not a recipe for long-term success.
Oh, and it shouldn't be a recipe. That shouldn't be what their game plan is the next few years.
And so that's why in my dreams when I think about him coming back is, man, maybe we get the B-Rob we got last year. Because B-Rob's production has ticked up during the losing streak, but his numbers aren't great. Maybe Garrison Brooks' production is more easier. Maybe Armando Bacot is more effective. But then I remember I watched them go 7-8 games and went on the same podcast after they played Elon and lost my mind because it still wasn't easy. And It wasn't easy against Elon. It's not going to be easy when you get into the next stretch where he's going to come back and he's going to be ready to play. That's why it's why this team's got to get better in certain areas, and it's why the big thing I took from this Pitt game is I think they've got to play zone the rest of the year.
I would say at this point, because just you saw it again in that first half where Pittsburgh just blew by them every single time. This team they can't stay in front of guys. It's really that simple. It's been just so easy for teams to get to the basket during this losing streak. And it started against Georgia Tech, and it has not dissipated. And I don't really get why it's happening like that all of a sudden, because before that wasn't a huge problem against Yale, and even earlier in the year, that really wasn't a major problem. Your problem was the reason that you were in a lot of games that you shouldn't have been in, you simply couldn't score. That now it's just so easy. And dude, I don't know if it's just me. I didn't think